Film has been around since the late 1800s, and the movie industry is growing stronger than ever in present day. Each year, over hundreds of thousands of films are created. But how did this cultural phenomenon start? Who invented the word film or movie? Well, it all started with one man and an idea of moving motion pictures. Thomas Edison was an American inventor and deemed the father of the electrical age, and the greatest inventor who ever lived. Famously, people who know him as the man who invented the light bulb, after many attempts. Edison began working on a motion picture device after seeing a lecture by this man, one of the first English photographers and pioneers of motion picture projection. I say this man because I don't know how to pronounce his name. Well, apparently Thomas Edison was mesmerized by this lecture, and afterwards went to go speak with this man himself. They talked for a lengthy time, and Edison wanted to design an instrument that does for the eye what the phonograph does for the ear. In other words, since this man was already working on the logistic of motion pictures, he wanted to design an object that displays motion pictures. Thomas Edison started working on his projector with a worker from his experimental staff, W.K.L. Dickinson, who happened to be a photographer. Dickinson's photographic skills surprisingly contributed only partial information into the design of the project. Edison provided various resources for the invention while also using the knowledge of photography and that those inventions used. Eventually, all hard work pays off, and that is just what happened with Edison's vision of a sort of projector. By 1892, Edison and partner Dickinson invented a new motion picture camera and a peephole viewing device called the kinetoscope. They were first shown publicly at the 1893 World Fair. World Fairs proved to be very popular during the 1800s and usually featured many attractions dealing with animals, rides, and new inventions. But what would be revealed in 1893 at Chicago's World Fair would prove to change history forever, and that is what Edison's new invention did. Inside of the machine, a strip of film was passed rapidly between a lens, and an electric light bulb shined through the piece of film, projecting the image that the viewer can see through a peephole. This device was only a simple start for film projectors, and over time new inventions were made, using more advanced material for a more positive outcome. After the success of Edison's first motion picture device, he went on to build a studio on the grounds of his own laboratory. By 1893, he named his new studio the Black Maria, and there he started to produce his very own films. Edison's films were relatively short and showed the activities of daily life. His first film, also the earliest surviving copyrighted motion picture, is called the Edison Kinescopic Record of a Sneeze, or for short, Fred Ott's famous sneeze. It simply showed Fred Ott, who was the jokester of Edison Labs, sneezing. Edison's films also cemented groundbreaking firsts. For instance, the first on-screen kiss, the first woman on film, the first colored film, the first baseball game on film, the first Native Americans on film, the first time Frankenstein's monster appeared on film, and even the first car ever seen on film history were all accomplished feats by Thomas Edison and his film company business. But Edison wasn't the only one who pioneered the film industry. Actually, Edison had relatively little to do with the film business, and left the making of motion pictures to others, and by 1918, Edison was out of the film business. Edwin Porter, an American film director, had a major impact in film history. Edwin Porter's 1903 film, The Great Train Robbery, had a well-thought-out script that provided a structure for scenes and were helpful in understanding the amount of footage needed for a film. As movies matured and their runtime increased, more movie theaters were opening, and the aspect of filmmaking was becoming more virtually known. The first theater opened in Pittsburgh in 1905, and the number of theaters would rise to over 10,000 by the year 1910. Pianos or organs would sit in theaters, and musicians would come in and play music occupying the film's soundless vibe. Filmmaking also managed to take itself overseas to many countries. Now, I'm not going to get into much about foreign films since this is simply the history of film in America, but here is a brief history from film in foreign countries. The Lumiere brothers were French inventors and made photographic equipment. Together, they created many short films and were very popular in France. Georges Méliès, also from France and more famously well known compared to the Lumiere brothers, had been claimed one of the most inventive filmmakers of all time. He pioneered the first split screen with performers acting opposite themselves and the first dissolve. Most importantly, he directed the 1902 film A Trip to the Moon. It took over 4 months to create and was one of the first movies with a story premise and big-budget special effects. I'm not talking about CGI, because that wasn't discovered until the mid-70s. I'm talking about actual effects, papier-mâché masks, painted backdrops, and cutting-edge camera tricks. Georges Méliès perfected this art, and by the year of his death in 1938, he made over 500 films in total, financing, directing, photographing, and starring in nearly every one. That is dedication. Back in America, more stars were rising in Hollywood. Probably the most well-known of them all, Charlie Chaplin, was making $130 a week in 1913, but by 1914, he was earning $10,000 a week. That's the equivalent to $256,063.06 in today's money. The word movie was invented in 1908, which originated as a shortened form of motion picture. Also in 1913, the phrase movie star was born, but Charlie Chaplin was the ultimate movie star of his time. He was known for his role as the Tramp, a character he created himself that always got himself into hilarious situations across many different movies. Charlie Chaplin proved to be so famous that many celebrities showed up to his movie premieres. In 1931, his film City Lights was premiering at the Los Angeles Theater. To many people's surprise, the great Albert Einstein and his wife joined Chaplin at the premiere. Here, in his autobiography, Charlie Chaplin describes the experience he had when his film first premiered in Los Angeles. The picture started. It showed the credit titles, to the usual first night applause. Then at last this first scene opened. My heart pounded. It was a comedy scene of the unveiling of a statue. They began to laugh. The laughter increased to roars. I had got them. Many comedic actors today look up to Chaplin himself, as he has proven to be one, if not the most inspiring, hilarious actor in motion picture history. In the late 1800s and 1900s, mainstream entertainment was becoming ever so popular. Many more movies were being created for audiences to enjoy, some of them weird, some of them hilarious, some of them mesmerizing. Here are a collection of films ranging from 1800 to 1915. I'm afraid that's all the time I have today. My name is ZRice, and this was the History of Film in America. See you later, everyone. And thanks for watching.